Alex, the billionaire, had a ring custom-made to my exact size, declaring he would marry whichever woman the ring fit. In my first life, Chloe, the fake heiress, secretly had the ring enlarged and married him. Alex beat her face senseless. She wasn't the one. In my second life, Haley, the adopted sister, starved herself to lose 30 pounds so the ring would fit and married him. Alex backhanded her, sending her tumbling down the stairs. She wasn't the one either. In my third life, Saria, my stepmother, shaved the skin off her finger so the ring would slide on. Alex sneered, then drowned her in the tub. Another failure. In my fourth life, they were out of options. Terrified, my family shoved me forward. The ring slipped onto my finger, a perfect, chilling fit. They finally breathed a sigh of relief. But the moment Alex saw me, he drew a knife and plunged it into my body. "Why isn't it her yet? Where is she?" he snarled. Even now, reborn, I still didn't know who he was looking for. When the ring arrived in this life, all four of us insisted it didn't fit. But the secretary's gaze swept across us, puzzled. "Mr. Alex said the owner of the ring is among you four," he stated firmly. We stared at the massive diamond, stunned. Every eligible woman in the Winslow family had already married him once. Who on earth was this billionaire truly searching for? Saria repeatedly confirmed with Alex's secretary, Mr. Vance. There must be a mistake. Surely his true beloved isn't among us. Otherwise, why would we have married him 4 times already? At this rate, we were collecting gravestones. But Mr. Vance only frowned. When you four attended Mr. Alex's banquet, you sat at a table alone. He looked at you then and said the ring's owner was among the 4 Winslow ladies. There is no mistake. He presented the ring with a flourish. "Why don't you each try it on?" Chloe recoiled instantly. "I'm allergic to diamonds. I'll die if I wear it." Haley, obsessed with money, waved her hands frantically. "I'm too chubby. I'll stretch it until it breaks." Saria forced a miserable smile. "My heart belongs to my late husband. Mr. Alex definitely doesn't love me." Finally, their eyes turned to me. Mr. Vance smiled. "Didn't Astrid meet Mr. Alex once and fall for him at first sight? This ring must be yours." My heart froze with dread. I had indeed fallen for him in my previous life. After all, Alex and I had been in a secret relationship, and he had even custom-made the ring to fit me. When I escaped the control of the other 3 and finally married Alex, I thought my suffering was over. I waited on the marriage bed, trembling with nervous excitement. But the moment he saw my face clearly, he grabbed a fruit knife and stabbed me over and over. His eyes burned with fury. "How dare you marry me in her place? You are not her." I died without ever understanding who she was. Now, lost in thought, I didn't take the ring. Mr. Vance chuckled. "Marrying Mr. Alex comes with pressure. I'll leave the ring here. He'll arrive tomorrow. You have 1 night to prepare." He departed in his diamond-studded limousine. But all we could do was stare at the blinding diamond, chilled to the core. The 3 women who had fought me for years suddenly united. They dragged me into the living room for an emergency meeting. One by one, they forced the ring onto their fingers. In the end, only mine offered the perfect, cursed fit. Saria eyed me skeptically. "Are you sure he really killed you on your wedding night?" I rolled my eyes. "He stabbed me full of holes and sent my body back to the Winslow family. You all saw it." Haley nodded quickly. "It was brutal. Not a patch of skin left untouched." Chloe sighed. "I fought with Astrid for 10 years, and even I felt bad when I saw her corpse." We exchanged helpless glances. "If we don't give him someone tomorrow," Saria whispered, "he'll kill all of us." Their faces paled. Then an idea struck me. There must be surveillance footage from the banquet. If the woman he wants isn't one of us, maybe we can find who she is. Desperate to live, we went immediately to the hotel. Haley spun a convincing sob story, earning us access to the footage. We watched ourselves seated at a lonely corner table. The Winslow name had fallen far since my father's death. Chloe frowned. And there were only 4 of us when Alex entered. On screen, Alex strode down the red carpet. As he passed our table, he halted. He turned toward us with a doting smile, whispered something to his secretary, and continued walking. My heart pounded. It really is one of us. But if so, why had he brutally murdered each of us? A single terrifying thought flashed through my mind. I need to go to Alex's house, I said. Wait for my news. They looked at me with admiration and fear. But I was the most bewildered of all because Alex and I were still in a secret relationship. And he had been the one who pursued me. Using the side entrance we always used, I slipped into his room. He froze when he saw me, then softened. You came without telling me, he murmured gently. The man before me overlapped with the monster who had stabbed me to death. I forced myself to ask, "Are you going to marry me?" He hesitated, something unnatural flickering in his eyes. We've been together so long. Don't you know me? I brought the ring to propose, to the woman I love. He pulled me onto his lap, affectionate as ever. But something was wrong. He had said he would marry the woman he loved. Yet he never said that woman was me. My heart cracked. Who is the woman you love? He stared at me. You should know. Why ask? I expected him to dodge again, but then he said, Of course it's you, Astrid. If you want it to be you, then it will be you. When you marry me tomorrow, I'll treat you well. His eyes held nothing but tenderness. He had always been good to me, tying my shoelaces, cooking for me, supporting me when the Winslows mistreated me. And yet I had seen those same eyes filled with madness as he stabbed me repeatedly. You're not her, he'd screamed. You could never be worthy of marrying me. My stomach twisted. He kissed the back of my hand. I nearly pulled away. And in that moment, a horrifying truth struck me. The woman he truly loved was. He abruptly covered my mouth. Are you asking too many questions tonight? He whispered, a dangerous glint in his eyes. Then he smiled gently again. Tomorrow is the wedding. Go home and rest. Terror shot through me. I fled. When I returned home, the other three surrounded me. What happened? Do you know who he loves? I shook my head. Their hope collapsed. Haley burst into tears. I don't want to die. Should we run? We can't, Saria snapped. He'll find us. Chloe muttered, maybe running buys us a few more days. But I straightened up. We can't run. We have to go through with the wedding. And I'll be the one marrying him. They stared at me as if I'd lost my mind. The ring sat on the table, our death sentence. Each of them would die horribly if they wore it. And my death had been the worst of all. Yet I walked over and slid the ring onto my finger without hesitation. This is the only way we survive. Haley stared at me. Then you found something out. I did, I admitted quietly. Chloe's voice trembled. What do you need us to do? Attend the wedding, I said. Act like nothing is wrong. Saria's eyes widened. You'll be stabbed to death, and you want us to pretend everything is normal? They were finally on my side, ironically, after a lifetime of petty fights. I took a breath, then told them the truth. When I visited Alex, he grabbed my hand and kissed it. That tiny detail made me realize who the woman he loves truly is. She is indeed among the four of us. It's someone we would absolutely never guess. She is. I stopped there. Because even in my own head, the truth I'd brushed against was too wild to say out loud. Chloe grabbed my wrist. She is who, Astrid? I forced a smile that felt like it might crack my cheeks. You'll know tomorrow. Their faces twisted with frustration, fear and fury. But there was no time left to argue. Dawn was already trying to bleed into the horizon. We barely slept that night. The next day, Alex came in person to fetch his bride. He wore a tailored black suit and a tie the exact shade of midnight. Under the bright Winslow chandeliers, he looked every inch the untouchable billionaire, calm, aloof, dangerously beautiful. Chloe, Haley and Saria stood behind me like a strange little honor guard. Alex's gaze swept over them briefly. Then settled on me. The look in his eyes was enough to make anyone else's knees go weak, openly tender, almost aching, as if he were finally seeing a long-lost treasure. My skin crawled. Astrid, he said softly, extending his hand. You look beautiful. Chloe's fingers dug into my shoulder. Haley's breathing hitched. Saria's expression pinched in doubt. If we hadn't watched me bleed out on the wedding bed in a previous life, we might have believed him. I slid my hand into his. His fingers curled around mine with practiced familiarity, and a jolt of déjà vu ran through me, the same warmth, the same scent of crisp cologne, the same gentle pressure he used to use when he guided me across icy sidewalks so I wouldn't slip. Only now I knew that somewhere inside this gentleness lurked a man who had methodically stabbed me 20 times and watched me die. The wedding itself was nothing like last time. Previously it had been quick, almost rushed, done quietly to keep the media at bay. This time, it was the exact opposite. The cathedral was packed. Chandeliers burned with 1,000 lights. Reporters waited outside the gates. Guests whispered excitedly as Alex and I walked down the aisle. My veil fluttered. My heels clicked on the marble floor. Beside me, Alex walked with steady, unhurried strides, as if we were merely completing a long-delayed formality. When the priest asked the question, his voice was solemn and resonant. "Do you, Alex Sterling, take Astrid Winslow as your lawfully wedded wife?" Alex looked straight at me. "I do," he said, his eyes soft, his lips curved in the kind of smile I'd once thought belonged only to fairy tales. Then it was my turn. My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. "I do." Applause burst through the cathedral. He slid the diamond ring onto my finger. It fit as perfectly as it always had, like a curse snapping back into place. "This is yours," he murmured, just loud enough for me to hear. "Always was. It suits you perfectly, Astrid." Flashes flickered as cameras tried to capture the moment. At the back of the church, I saw Chloe's face, pale, unsettled. Haley gnawed her lip. Saria's arms were folded so tightly her knuckles were white. If we hadn't known what came after, it would have been a perfect wedding. The banquet afterward felt endless. We toasted relatives, business partners, even a few politicians. Everyone either congratulated me for my good fortune or congratulated Alex for finally settling down. Every time someone clapped him on the shoulder and said, "You found your true love at last, Mr. Sterling," his smile never wavered. He played the part flawlessly. Chloe leaned close when she got the chance, her whisper sharp under the polite chatter. "Did we remember wrong? He looks genuinely in love with you." Haley's eyes darted around nervously. "In the last life, there wasn't such a big ceremony," she muttered. "Maybe the details changed. Maybe this time. Maybe he really wouldn't kill me." I smiled faintly and said nothing. Because the memory of 20 careful knife wounds was etched into my bones. I knew exactly what was waiting in the bridal suite. When the guests finally left, the house grew strangely quiet. I changed into the deep red wedding gown chosen for the bridal chamber, silk that hugged my waist, threaded with gold, heavy enough to feel like armor. On the bedside table, someone had thoughtfully arranged a plate of red apples and pomegranates, symbols of fertility and early children, beside a gleaming fruit knife. My fingers hovered over the knife's handle for a moment. Last time, I hadn't even noticed it before it was buried in my chest. This time, I picked it up, weighed it, then slid it under the edge of the table within easy reach. Under my skirts, duct taped to my thigh, was a small can of pepper spray I'd procured that very day, hidden inside layers of tulle and lace. In the ornate wooden chest at the foot of the bed, I'd stashed a coil of rope I'd asked the staff to fetch for securing decorations. I sat on the bed and forced myself to breathe slowly. Outside, footsteps came and went. Voices faded. Doors shut. Finally, there was only one set of steps left in the hallway. His. The door opened. Alex walked in, closing it behind him with a soft click. The instant his eyes fell on me, the tenderness vanished. His brows knit. His lips thinned. A thin blade of hatred flashed in his gaze so fast that anyone else might have missed it. But I had seen it before. "You're not him," he snarled under his breath. "How dare you take his place?" A cold shock shot down my spine. "Not him." I didn't move. He strode over, grabbed the fruit knife from the table with a familiar, unhesitating motion and raised it toward my chest. Last time, that was where my story had ended. This time, my hand shot out from under my skirts. I sprayed the pepper spray straight into his eyes. Alex screamed, stumbling back, clutching his face. The knife clattered to the floor. I snatched up the heavy chair beside the vanity and swung it with all my strength. The edge smashed into his side. He crashed to the ground, coughing, swearing, tears streaming from his burning eyes. I was shaking so hard my teeth rattled, but I forced my body to move. I grabbed the rope from the chest, rolled him onto his back and bound his wrists to the carved bedpost, then his ankles to the footboard. My knots were clumsy, but rage and adrenaline gave me focus. By the time he stopped thrashing, sweat soaked through the underarms of my gown. He blinked furiously, eyes bloodshot and watering, staring at me as if I had personally betrayed him. "Astrid," he rasped, voice raw, "have you lost your mind?" I stared down at him. He looked exactly the same as in my memories, sharp cheekbones, cool brows, the handsome face that had once leaned down to kiss my forehead when I'd cried over a scraped knee like some silly child. If I hadn't already died on this bed once, I might have fallen for the wounded hurt in his eyes. Instead, I sat on the edge of the mattress, just out of reach, and said calmly, "That's your second mistake tonight." His brows drew together. "What are you talking about?" "You keep talking to me like I'm some desperate gold digger," I said, voice low. "Someone who clawed her way into your bed for money and power." I tilted my head. But money and power? The real Alex already gave me those. Quietly. Long before this wedding. His pupils shrank. I saw it, the split-second flinch he couldn't fully suppress. Only 2 people knew about the last-minute transfer of shares, the secret trust, the hidden accounts in my name. Me. And the real Alex Sterling. The man tied to this bed had just exposed himself. He tried to smile, but it came out crooked. "You've been listening to those 3 harpies in your family. They're poisoning your mind against me. I went against my board to make this marriage happen, Astrid. For you." "I've heard that line before," I said softly. My gaze dropped to the knife on the floor. I picked it up and traced a slow, shallow line in the air, mirroring the motion I remembered him using as he stabbed me over and over. This time, he flinched. "If you really love me," I continued, "why did you call me not him the second you walked in?" "I was joking," he snapped. "Who else would my true love be, if not you?" I drove the knife straight into his thigh. He screamed, the sound raw and animal. "I don't mind cutting out the lies one piece at a time," I said through my own shaking, my tone frighteningly calm even to my own ears. "Because I already know the truth." I twisted the blade just enough to make him gasp for air. "You're not Alex." It took a while before he could even breathe properly, let alone speak. "You're insane," he panted. "Look at me. I am Alex. Who else do I look like?" On the outside, I agreed. But the real Alex would never kiss my right hand. He knows the scar on my wrist is sensitive. I held up my hand, skin pale where an old burn mark hid under makeup. "The real Alex," I went on, "never offered me money and power as if they were bargaining chips. He'd already handed them over, quietly, in documents you don't even know exist. And the real Alex certainly wouldn't have to guess the password to his own emergency email." His eyes widened. "Got you. You're just a stand-in," I said. "A very well-trained one. Good enough to fool investors and journalists. Maybe even good enough to fool my stepmother and those vultures at her charity luncheons." I leaned closer. But not good enough to fool the woman he actually loved. His face went ashen. For a moment, I thought he'd keep bluffing. Instead, his shoulders slumped against the pillow, a bitter, twisted smile tugging at his mouth. "You're smarter than he said," he muttered. "Smarter than any of you Winslows ever acted." My heart clenched. "Where is he?" That bitter smile widened into something almost mocking. "Dead." The word hit me like another knife. I couldn't breathe. Dead. The man who had once tied my shoelaces because my fingers were too cold to move. The man who'd cooked for me in a hoodie and jeans in a billion-dollar kitchen, burning an omelet and laughing like an idiot. The man whose voice had been the only soft thing in my life for years. Gone. I must have gone pale, because the stand-in, whoever he really was, actually chuckled. "You want to know how I cracked the password to that precious little email of his?" he asked hoarsely. "Easy. It's much simpler to guess a password when you have the owner tied to a chair in front of you. My stomach lurched. I tightened my grip on the knife to keep my hands from trembling. Before I could decide whether to cut deeper or scream first, the bedroom door slammed open. Astrid. 3 figures rushed in, a swirl of silk, perfume and barely checked panic. Chloe, Haley, and Saria. Chloe didn't hesitate. She grabbed the fallen chair and brought it down on the imposter's head with a sickening crack. Haley and Saria both went for his torso, driving hard kicks into his ribs and arms until he sagged against the bed, nearly unconscious from pain and the earlier blow. Haley then darted to my side and peeled the rope from my throat. I hadn't even realized he'd managed to loop it around my shoulders in his thrashing. Air rushed back into my lungs. "What are you doing here?" I croaked. Chloe tossed her hair, breathing hard. "What, you thought we'd just sit at home drinking chamomile tea while you walked into the execution chamber alone? You said to act normal," Haley sniffed, eyes bright with tears and fury. "So we did. We smiled, we waved, we pretended to be jealous and petty and stupid. Then we followed you here the second no one was looking." Saria folded her arms and looked away, pretending to be annoyed. "We agreed we'd only fight each other over money and handbags," she said coldly. "Not over our lives. If anyone gets to torment you to death, it'll be us, not some outsider." My eyes burned. "I'll try to live up to your expectations," I said weakly. They all flushed at once, as if they'd said too much, and immediately changed the subject. "How'd we get in?" Chloe repeated when I just stared at them. She smirked. "Simple. I pretended to be Alex's pitiful, abandoned fiancé and begged the guards to let me see you privately so I could talk you out of running away." Haley sobbed about how she'd kill herself if her pregnant sister was forced into a loveless marriage. And Saria promised to take full responsibility if anything went wrong. I let out a half-hysterical laugh. "No wonder I could never outmaneuver you 3. Haley grinned and pointed at the man tied to the bed. "You're still not beating us. You're the only idiot who dared put the ring back on knowing you'd be stabbed." Saria rubbed her knuckles, looking mildly impressed. "You walked straight in, knowing exactly how you'd die. I admit. That's gutsy." Warmth bloomed painfully in my chest. These 3 women had spent years making my life miserable with petty cruelty, stolen dresses and snide remarks. We'd clawed at each other over scraps of affection and status my father had left in his wake. But when it came down to it, they had still chosen to walk into a monster's den with me. "All right," Chloe said, turning back to the imposter. "We're all here. You going to tell us the rest of it, Astrid?" So I did. I told them about the wrong hand he'd kissed. The way his words didn't match what only the real Alex could know. The mention of an emergency email, one I'd stumbled upon once by accident on Alex's computer, a dead man's switch set to send a message to my most beloved person if he didn't log in for 5 days. The stand-in had seen it. He couldn't read the contents without the password, but he saw enough: the scheduled send, the subject line, the recipient address. Our address. The Winslow family mansion. Somewhere in our house lived the person the real Alex had considered his most beloved, the one he'd wanted to protect, even after death. 3 days of those 5 had already passed when the stand-in found the email. He panicked. He tortured Alex. Got the password. Read the email. Found out exactly who the recipient was. Then, rather than let that person expose him, he killed Alex and dumped the body. And because he wasn't sure which Winslow woman the email referred to, he did the simplest, ugliest thing he could think of. He sent the ring. The ring that had been made to one exact finger size. Whoever it fit would be the recipient. Whoever married him would die. The first 3 times, I finished, my voice hollow, he thought he'd miscalculated. The fit wasn't perfect enough. The reaction he wanted wasn't strong enough. So he killed you. All of you. And then me. Chloe's face was paper white. Haley's hands shook. Saria pressed her lips into a hard line. The stand-in laughed weakly, blood soaking through his trouser leg. I was supposed to get rid of one woman, he rasped. He should never have played with so many of you. What about Alex? Haley demanded. What did he say in that email? The imposter's expression twisted. You really want to know? He told you that you were his salvation? That you were the only light in his darkness? He gave me a cruel look. He sent that same line to all of you. Separately. Different jokes, different gifts, same promise. Saria, Chloe and Haley exchanged glances. Haley pulled her phone from her purse and scrolled, then wordlessly handed me a voice message labeled AS, Alex's initials. The voice in the audio was his. Soft, indulgent, promising Haley she was the only one who understood him and that he couldn't live without her. Chloe showed me a photograph of a limited edition bracelet. A note in his handwriting curved across the edge, to the only woman I truly trust. Saria, after a long second, fished a small velvet box from her clutch and flipped it open. Inside was a diamond pendant I'd never seen before. The card tucked underneath read, "For the woman who makes me want to be a better man." My heartbreak cooled. "It wasn't just you," I said quietly, "more to myself than them." He told all of us we were his most beloved. The stand-in smirked. "Congratulations. You weren't special after all. Just one of many." Silence settled over the room. Then Chloe lifted her chin. "Fine," she said. "Then we won't cry over either of them. The real Alex is dead. This cheap copy tried to kill all four of us. So we use what they left behind and make sure none of us ever has to beg a man for anything again." Haley's eyes gleamed. For once, I agree with her. Saria looked down at the imposter, contempt clear in every line of her body. "We clean this up. We take the shares. We take the assets. We bury the story. And then we walk away from the sterling name forever." I looked at all three of them. Women who had once fought me for every scrap of security in a collapsing family. Women who had, despite everything, burst into a room to pull a rope from my throat. "One problem at a time," I said softly. "First the imposter. Then we decide what kind of life we want." We all turned to look at the man on the bed. For the first time in 4 lives, the 4 Winslow women stood shoulder to shoulder, enemies no longer, united by blood, bruises and a diamond ring that had almost become our headstone. I slipped the cursed ring off my finger and set it on the nightstand. Its surface caught the light, glittering coldly. "You wanted to know who the ring truly belonged to, didn't you?" I murmured to the unconscious man, and to the memory of the real Alex, somewhere far beyond our reach. "It belongs to us now. To me. To Chloe. To Haley. To Saria. To the 4 women who had died for it in one lifetime after another. And were finally done being anyone's sacrifice."